New tonight, drivers stopped on major highways, interrogated. The reason? Border security. It's happening right now on the U.S. border with Canada. Martin Savage is out front.
Driving down I-93 in New Hampshire, about 80 miles from the Canadian border, Justin Summers runs into a checkpoint operated by the U.S. Border Patrol. He starts recording. The Border Patrol agent tells him if he wants to keep driving south, he has to answer a question.
Are you a United States citizen?
Summer tells me he resented being stopped and interrogated.
I indicate, hey, I don't want to answer these questions. I'd like to be on my way.
That didn't happen.
This is the area of the checkpoint. Justin Summers says when he refused to answer the agent's questions, they detained him and said they would hold him until he told them what they wanted to hear. In other words, indefinitely. The message to you is, if you don't answer this question, we're going to hold you on the side of the road here until who knows when.
Exactly. It's kind of an intimidation tactic, I think.
So I need you to pull over there?
A tactic critics say is happening more frequently and far away from the U.S.-Mexico border, which has been at the center of attention when it comes to immigration. This is another checkpoint in New Hampshire, Memorial Day weekend. And this was Maine just this month.
If you want to continue down the road, yes, ma'am. We need to know what country you're a citizen of.
Hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals are being stopped, detained, seized, and interrogated without any reasonable suspicion, without any probable cause that a crime has been committed. And that's really not how our Constitution works.
You have anybody in the trunk?
The American Civil Liberties Union calls the checkpoints illegal and blames the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy. And you don't have to live near a border to run into a checkpoint. By law, border agents can work up to 100 miles from the entire perimeter of the country.
2/3 of individuals living in the United States actually fall within this 100-mile region.
It gives us a chance to see what's going on, in our case, what's going on in our area.
Sector Chief Dennis Harmon says the checkpoints aren't random but based on intelligence. He sees the questioning and detention of Americans as a minor inconvenience.
It's no more of a stop or inconvenience than you have at a traffic light.
The traffic light doesn't query me, though, as to what I'm doing or why.
True. But we're not asking you what you're doing or why. We're just asking you a simple question. Are you a citizen of the United States? Or of what country are you a citizen or national?
But you will delay my moving forward until I give you some response.
Which the courts have affirmed that we're allowed to do.
The checkpoint in Maine did apprehend an undocumented immigrant, but Harmon couldn't say how many Americans had to be stopped and questioned to make that happen. Meanwhile, in neighboring New Hampshire, Justin Summers was eventually released and says he'd do it all again. After all, he lives in a state whose motto is live free or die.
And I don't want to be a nation of checkpoints. I don't want to be a nation where you have to prove that you have the right to be where you are doing your daily activities.
The U.S. Border Patrol up here says, for now, the checkpoints are going to continue. The ACLU has some advice if you run across one. As an American, you don't have to give an answer. But if you don't answer, be aware you'll likely be detained. And even though the law says you can only be detained briefly, well, your idea of briefly and the Border Patrol's idea of briefly could be very different.